What's up, everyone? Online prep coach Alex here with prepcoach.com. Today, talking about the differences in NAD supplementation between athletes and between dysfunctional sick people. It's actually very drastically different. So, if you recall that basic cycle, what we're looking at is essentially we have that NAD essentially going over into that NA. Down here, that nicotinamide mononucleotide, it goes back to there. Now, in normal physiology, biology, this NAD can now go off and it can do basically everything else that we know it does. It could be organ repair, it could be muscular repair, it could be fueling cells for the better, it could be so many different things. But what can also happen is if we look over here at that NA, it can go through here, and that's where the big enzyme that everyone knows, that nicotinamide N-methyltransferase. So NNMT can then go ahead and drive essentially a lot of different processes through that one MNA to go ahead and drive all of these dysfunctions, all these inflammatory cascades. And if you look, that actual cascade is being upregulated in a lot of different cancerous cells and a lot of different inflammatory diseases and everything. So we see this, and that's causing, we're going to say, cancers, we're going to say inflammation, and we're going to say overall dysfunction, right? So in this world, if we are, say, an athlete, right, we are on this side of the equation, meaning we're able to take our NAD molecules, we're able to go ahead and we're able to push these over, and what's it going to do? Athletes in particular that are healthy can utilize exogenous NAD therapy in all of its formats to drive up lactate dehydrogenase, which is super cool because what does that do? So it's coming over here, we're seeing an increase in lactate dehydrogenase. What's that directly going to do? That's going to increase glycolysis. So all of your high repetition, endurance training, all those things that are in the glycolytic spectrum are now going to be improved because of that enzymatic upregulation. So in this scenario, athletes are pretty cool, right? They're covered. Athletes over here can use NAD supplementation with this, athletes, to literally drive their performance via that lactate dehydrogenase to glycolysis cascade. That also means more anabolism, more fat loss, better performance, basically everything. Whereas if you were dysfunctional, what ends up happening is we see the opposite side over here. So we're going to say, overall, we're going to see this. Overall dysfunctional type of setup. What we end up seeing over here is in this, if we have a high amount of dysfunction, that means we're going to have a high amount of an enzyme called CD38. CD38 is an ectoenzyme. It's very multi-dimensional. It works in multiple different facets in multiple different ways. But when it gets upregulated, what do we see? All of those same cascades, meaning we see CD38 levels being higher in cancer cells. We see inflammatory cascades, inflammatory diseases, high levels of CD38. What do we also see in those same diseases? High levels of NNMT, which is going to literally basically show us the same thing. So what we're looking at here is if you're an athlete and you're healthy, and maybe an athlete's the wrong term, if you're healthy, you're able to take your NAD supplementation and push it towards everything. So maybe I should even put that over there. Because we don't just have glycolysis, we have the improvement to overall anabolism, the improvement to overall beta oxidation, the improvement to overall longevity cascades. Like, it's just going on and on. It's a positive, it's a positive. Certain disease states, or if you're in that sick-based world, can still use this NAD supplementation properly. Certain ones can't. Why? Because of what's going on over here. We're taking those NAD molecules and we are pushing them down the wrong cascade because of high CD38 levels and because of high NNMT levels. So if we're looking to actually modulate these things, we have a couple really cool players, right? The CD38 one, if we're trying to bring that down to allow NAD supplementation to work better, we can actually, I'll change colors for this one too. You see, we got a lot going on here. So if you are dysfunctional, you're trying to utilize your NAD supplementation properly and get the health benefits, the body comp performance, whatever, you're going to have to change that actual CD38 enzyme. So we can downregulate that with two big things. First, we have apigenin, and then we have quercetin. So the problem with these is that although these can be prepared in a couple different ways to get them a little more bioavailable to have the end fate of lowering CD38, we have some better options than straight quercetin and straight apigenin. First, we have Sophora japonica. So if we look at this, we have Sophora japonica, which is actually a glycoside of quercetin. So it has that sugar group added to it. Apigenin is actually parsley. So parsley extract. There's a couple products on the market that do include these because these are not only going to modulate CD38, but there's other ingredients in these products that's also going to modulate NMMT. Another one we know with NMMT, if you're trying to drive that down, is going to be what? Everyone knows this one, right? 5-amino-1-MQ. So if you're in this dysfunctional world and we're trying to take NAD for longevity purposes, but we can't get over there because that NA is going through that cascade because of a high amount of NMT and because of a high amount of CD38, we're going to need to take something like an apigenin or quercetin or the Sophora products, the parsley products, and then potentially even the 5-amino-1-MQ products. I should actually make sure that looks like a 1. So we are managing those two dysregulatory enzymes that are essentially going to go off and feed senescent cells, cancer cells, and all these negative things. So in this world, we are looking at taking exogenous NAD therapy as an athlete, as is. But if you're an athlete, you can also get more benefit from adding in something like a 5-amino-1-MQ, something like a Sophora, something like a parsley, because we're trying to continue to drive things in the right direction. If we are, again, in the dysfunctional world, we most likely want to avoid direct NAD supplementation and first go ahead and fix these other problems. Again, these are the big ones, your CD38s and your NMMT problems. You fix those, and then you can go ahead and either add in your NAD supplementation, or you're just taking these and it's fixing that whole cascade in and of itself. Less inflammation, less feeding of senescent cells, less feeding of cancer cells, pretty much all good. So that's pretty much a little breakdown on how athletes and dysfunctional people will utilize NAD therapies differently. Thank you so much for watching. Check out thepepcoach.com. See you next time.